Okay, let's talk about the new Samsung Galaxy tablets. If you'd asked me before today, hey Dave, what is the best tablet out there? I would have said, without a doubt in my mind, like for sure, iPad Pro. This is the best hardware, the best experience, the best supported thing out there. Easy pick. This product, the Samsung Tab S7 Plus, is, in my opinion, the first tablet out there that can legitimately compete with the iPad Pros. Like, it's that good. Now, this is for sure the best Android tablet, right? Not a very difficult achievement to hit, but I think for many people, this is actually the better choice and the more practical choice over the iPad Pro. That's a big claim. Now, to understand why, we have to look at this product as a comprehensive package, not just as a tablet by itself, but the whole thing, like the keyboard, the S Pen, because when you're looking at tablets at this kind of price point, these premium devices, you're not just using them for media consumption, right? There's obviously a reason as to why you're picking this up instead of like a cheaper $200 or $300 tablet just for media consumption. The plan is when you pick up something premium and high end, you want to do more than just consume media, right? At least that's the thinking. So let's look at the hardware first. Obviously, this thing is packed with some powerful stuff. The Snapdragon 865 Plus, 6 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, and also has a new 120Hz display panel, which is a smoother and more fluid visual experience. And also has a new S Pen and a new keyboard, which we'll get into a little bit. But the hardware on this thing is excellent. As a media consumption device, this thing is awesome. The speakers are very loud, very clear. There's two on each side. It's a very nice audio experience. If you're watching movies, you're listening to music, anything that has to do with sound, this thing does it really well. The exterior of the device hasn't changed much from last year's model, but the front-facing camera is now positioned in a way so that it's on top in landscape mode. The new screen is 120Hz, AMOLED, high PPI. It's a fantastic visual experience. And because it's got a high refresh screen, stuff just looks super fluid on it. Now, I've talked about in phone videos how a high refresh screen isn't super important, right? Because on a phone, I mean, scrolling is nice. Scrolling very smoothly is really nice. But when it comes to a tablet, a high refresh screen makes a huge difference, especially when there's a pen or an S Pen involved. And this is one of the reasons why I liked the iPad Pro so much. When you're drawing or just doing any kind of creative work with a pencil or a pen, and there's no lag, it just makes the whole pen and tablet experience so much better. And this year, they've reduced the latency on the S Pen to 9 milliseconds. It's super fast. When you draw with this thing, it really feels like there's no perceptible latency between the S Pen and the screen. It's just so much better than last year's model. Now, when you're done with it, or when you want to store it, it just goes into the back of the device. It stores magnetically. It doesn't have a divot on the back of the screen like last year's model. It just attaches onto a flush surface. The case that I have on this device is the bookcase keyboard, and it is so much better than last year's model. That thing used weird adhesives to stick the back thing on. It was no good, it was unreliable, and more importantly, the keyboard. This is a way better keyboard than last year's model. This types similarly to a Surface device. It's not as good. I definitely prefer the Surface keyboards, but the layout is on point, and it just feels appropriate. Like the responsiveness of the keys is nice. It doesn't have backlighting, which is unfortunate, and the keyboard also does not tilt up like Surface keyboards, also unfortunate, but the overall typing experience is good. Now, the reason why I'm even talking about this stuff, about the pen and the keyboard, is because the functionality that this whole thing provides comes to life with Samsung DeX. And if you're unfamiliar with what DeX is, it's this platform that Samsung has that allows you to use their Android devices in an environment that's more Windows-like, right? It's got a taskbar, it's got windows that you can resize and stuff like that. It's a very productivity-focused platform. Now, here's the thing. Samsung DeX is available on pretty much every single Samsung device. Their phones, that's a lie. Not every Samsung device. Clearly, their fridges don't have Samsung DeX, but their Android devices, the current ones, have DeX. And I've always found DeX to be gimmicky when it comes to their phones, because it's like, in order to use this, to use it effectively, you need to have a keyboard, a mouse, and potentially a bigger screen. Like, who's carrying that stuff around, right? It feels like a cool idea, but not a lot of people are using DeX on their phones. But when it comes to a tablet, what I think DeX does is it gives the user a different user interface depending on whether they're holding the tablet and using it for media consumption or handheld touch-sensitive things. And it differs from when you connect it up to your keyboard. And that, I think, is a fundamental difference between this tablet and just gives it so much more practicality versus everything else out there. If you're using an iPad, if you're holding it in your hand if you have it connected to a keyboard and you're doing work on it, it's the same UI, and multitasking on iPadOS doesn't feel particularly efficient. And same thing with Windows tablets. When it comes to the Surface devices, it's why they're great as laptops, but they're not the best media consumption devices when it comes to handheld use. With DeX, it allows the device to be a really good tablet and a really good laptop, because the UI can switch to an environment where there's multiple windows that you can move around and resize however which way you want. And that is so useful. Like, there's a reason why Microsoft Windows has that stuff. There's a reason why Mac OS has that stuff, because resizable windows, movable windows is so useful when you're trying to get stuff done. And that's always been one of the biggest shortcomings of iPads, because iPadOS doesn't allow true or proper multitasking. It's got some pains, you can shift them around, but it's not like this. If you want the good stuff, Samsung DeX. Battery life on this thing is pretty solid. It's an easy 10 hours. If you wanted to, you could probably hit like 13, 14 if you lowered the screen brightness, but at like the 3/4 mark, so there, I just ran the test, 10 hours and a little bit. It's pretty solid. Now, there are some disadvantages with Samsung's tablets. There's two things that come to mind, both software related. Number one, apps. iPads just have a more robust app selection. Developers probably feel more comfortable, more confident in developing apps for this user base because there's so many tablet, like iOS tablet users out there versus a tablet that's Android based. But secondly, I'm going to bring this up because their track record in the past hasn't been excellent. Samsung's support for their hardware, it's like a comfortable 2 years, sometimes 3 years. And I don't know if that's, I don't know how that's going to be like in 3 years' time. You always get 2 years of great support. And then afterwards, it's hit or miss. Now with iPads, you just get awesome updates for 4 or 5 years sometimes. 2 to 3 is comfortable. You'd be lucky if you got more. But that's the Galaxy Tab S7 Plus. I think it's a really good device this year. So much better. It's so much more competitive now that they have the 120Hz screen, and the overall package is just so much more refined. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. I'll see you guys next time.